What's good, everybody? Welcome back to episode 3 of the Around the A Sports Podcast. As you guys can see, joined by the full panel tonight, all four of our official hosts here on this illustrious podcast. Coming to you guys on the evening of August 3rd, 2023, about a bi weekly show as of right now. We plan to eventually go weekly for you guys when we get all of this stuff figured out. We're learning as we go, but we're glad to join you guys tonight again on the night of August 3rd, 2023. You guys will probably end up seeing this around the 5th or the 6th of August. But yeah, joined by everybody in this episode tonight. I'm Blake Newsom. To the right is Dylan Clearfield, a Norcross High School alumni, getting ready to start at UGA in about a week or two. It's down below me, Mike O'Neill. You're about to go to Jackson State within about a week or so. And then, of course, to the corner, the newest addition to the show, my buddy from my first ever Atlanta Sports Podcast way back in our middle school days, Connor Quinn, here to talk about some Georgia Tech, Atlanta United, everything else we haven't covered so far in the first couple episodes. But yeah, great to hear from you guys. Glad we're finally on track, about 75 minutes past when we were supposed to start recording, but you learn as you go. But glad to hear from you guys tonight. Dylan, I'm going to start with you. How you been, man?
Yeah, I've been good. Had my orientation last week, so I kind of know more about what's going on, what my schedule's looking like, everything like that for being at UGA. Got some good headlines going on with the Atlanta sports teams. We're gonna cover today and in the next few weeks as well as that. I mean, Braves have been hot, all that kind of stuff. We're getting some more stuff later, but yeah, happy to be here again. A little bit late, but we're here and we're ready to get it going. Talk about all these good headlines going on around Atlanta.
We ball, we ride, everything of the above. Mike, I see the dog is back and is ready for episode 3. How you been, brother?
Been good, been good. It's like Dylan just had my orientation the other day. Also, my move-in date is, I believe, next Saturday. So I'm, ready for college to start and ready to jump to this podcast.
And then Connor, how excited are you to finally make your debut on the show?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Just ready to talk about Atlanta sports, ready to talk about the latest news and rumors going on around the city. I'm excited for it.
And glad you guys could join us here on this evening. Without further ado, not wasting any more time, we're going to jump into our headlines, of course, starting with the Atlanta Braves, being they are in season. We last talked to you guys after they wrapped up that first series from Milwaukee before they started that two-gamer in Fenway, and we're going to recap everything that has gone on up until the Anaheim series. And so, yeah, without further ado, we'll get into it. I know Dylan, you and I talked about going into this last week of play. We said that we hope they go 3-2 over the stand. They got a two-gamer in Fenway. We hope that they would split and take another series with Milwaukee. They did go 3-2, but the way they won 3-2 was not exactly the way we thought. What was your original process on just finding a way to lose both those games in Fenway? I'll start with you.
Yeah, obviously not the ideal. Again, we talked about splitting. We were hoping for a split. Boston has not been amazing by any stretch this year, but they're always a tough team. And playing in Boston, I know we had some good moments there, like Vaughn Grissom's first homer. That was kind of a cool moment in Boston. Duvall and Ozuna had those 2 or 3 home run games a year or two ago as well. But I mean, they had our number for those 2 games, which is it's interleague. It's how the new schedule is going to be more interleague games, stuff like that. But it's also just 2 games late July, not versus a division or even league rival. It's not the end of the world, and obviously, as we're going to move into that as well. We bounced back. We got the sweep against Milwaukee. So 3-2 in that stretch was fine. I'd even rather take 3-2 this way than 3-2 with the split and a series win. I'd much rather take this 2-game sweep loss and then the 3-game sweep win, of course, for a team that's in the NL as well. Competing for between the postseason. So I think overall it was fine results. Boston wasn't that great, but Milwaukee got back on track and then was able to, keep it going into the next series as well.
And then it seems like the Red Sox were the hottest team in the league throughout the month of July. And so it was a little tough to find a way to lose that second game. I know that first game, it seems like if you look at the box score, I want to say they lost something along the lines of like 7-1. But that first inning was something I had never seen. The Braves got screwed out of 2 runs that inning, a ball that was thrown into the seats, which is supposed to be, 2 bases allowed, which with the bases loaded would have scored 2 runs. umpires only allow us one. They end up checking to third before their next pitch, and they call Matt Olson out saying he left early, that he tagged too early, and it basically cut out the Braves' entire momentum for the rest of the game. I'm not sure they scored the entire rest of the night. The Red Sox ended up going to Nick Pivetta out of the bullpen, who has been, disgusting since being removed out of that rotation. He's become more of a second or third inning opener guy, being relieved for the first inning or two, and he did his thing. I think he won like 6 innings of like 1-run ball. Braves went on to lose like 8-2, and they shook it off, went into the next night on an ESPN telecast, and Dylan, as you said, they were ahead for most of that game. Ozzie Albies with a 3-run bomb, I want to say in the 6th inning, until it wasn't the case anymore. Justin Turner, the former Braves killer, with the ball off the monster. They took out Strider, it looks like, a little too early. The Red Sox took the lead, and they never gave it back. And a little unsure, it's Adam Duvall gives them a 5-3 win. Definitely was a little awkward to see Kenley be able to get 2 saves against the Braves this year, throwing 98 from the stuff we saw last year. Just not the same pitcher. Connor, what was the original takeaway from this series, or anything that Dylan and I haven't gotten to so far?
Yeah, I think you guys really said it well. I just think obviously baseball is MLB season is really long. There's going to be ups and downs. We saw the struggle they had against the Oakland A's. Even though the Rays were obviously the better team, they just caught them at a bad time, and unfortunately weren't able to capitalize. But I think the Rays are in good shape right now as a team as they move forward to the postseason.
And then let's talk about that 9th inning shenanigans real quick, Dylan. I know that 9th inning we had 2 on. Looks like we had a little bit of momentum building. The Braves go to Forrest Wall off the bench. You would think with Connor Wong behind the plate, Kenley throwing, with the guy having 47 stolen bases in like half of a AAA season, you think it'd be easy money for him to swipe it back, but no, throwing out very first pitch. What was your initial reaction to that baloney?
I think obviously that was the pinch run decision was fine to me. I think the steal was also fine to me. Obviously, again, with Kenley being a slow pitcher, he had lots of people stealing him last year, as we saw, when he was with Atlanta. And him coming up, he had just come up, maybe a day or two before that from Gwinnett, which was exciting to see. I mean, some injuries, some inconsistencies in the outfield. Just bring up another guy who has incredible value on the base paths. As you said, he has 40-something stolen bases in 50-something games, something like that for the Stripers before he got called up. There was immediate knee-jerk negative reaction from me when that happened. I just unfortunate how it played out, obviously, but I think just in general, that is an asset to have, and that's a fine decision just to deploy him there, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, it's just one of those rare circumstances where I think the extra velocity from Kenley definitely helped him. Throwing 6 miles an hour, faster than he did last year, definitely makes the throw a lot easier to be put on the money by Connor Wong, who doesn't have the greatest catcher arm. He's been a third catcher behind Plawecki and Vasquez for many years up in Boston. Finally got a chance this season with both of those guys out the door. But maybe, I think, as you said, that first pitch mentality, maybe if they would have waited for that second pitch and Arcia taking, would have been a huge difference. But ended up coming back to bite us. In the end, we ended up getting swept, ended up losing 3 of 4 on the year to the Red Sox, which I will say, again, was the hottest team in baseball in the month of July. But just inexcusable the way that things happen. And you see Red Sox fans and Braves mentions right now saying, oh, we can't wait to meet you guys in the World Series. Don't let us get hot. I'm being honest. I'm not afraid of the Red Sox like I was a couple years ago. If we meet them in the World Series, I'm talking some barbecue chicken. But we got to get there first. They got to get there first. But it was just a definitely ugly series loss. Connor, any final thoughts on that Fenway series?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting the way Kenley was able to, since he is a slow pitcher, obviously, as we witnessed when we was with the Braves last year, that they were able to throw a runner out due to his slow windup. So I just thought that was interesting. As I saw, I didn't see it live personally, but I just think obviously it was kind of a rough series. But again, I just don't. I think long term it won't have a huge effect on them. And I think they're still they're definitely going to win the division, and I still think that they're still all set for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what Dylan and I talked about last episode. The Braves are set up, but they're probably going to win the East. As long as they don't have it, because they play the Phillies 8 times in the month of September. I will say that. As long as nothing catastrophic happens during those 8 games, if the Braves go 3-5, 4-4 in those 8 games, the Phillies don't have enough firepower with the Braves injuries coming back to catch us. I think the NL East with another good month of August here, it's pretty much on ice. And they're probably going to be a top 2 seed. It's going to be just what we saw last year, where they're going to have that wild card bye going into the NLDS. And can they not get rusty during this year's wild card series, going into a hot wild card winning series this time around? That's for another episode down the line. But they're still in very good shape right now. They've only had 2 bad stretches of ball, the back half of May and the back half of July. The rest of the season, they've been incredible. They decided this year they didn't want to have a slow start. They wanted to come out of the gates hot. And instead of having to play catch up, they've been the best team in baseball. They've jumped the Los Angeles Dodgers, for crying out loud. That's a team that we haven't been able to get above for many years. And for us to be still 7 or 8 games up on them in the standings in the month of August, pretty special. But turning the page here, they came back home, had a really nice week of ball, going 5-1 with a sweep over the Milwaukee Brewers, going 5-1 against another first place team. Well, was first place team due to us handling business with them. The Reds have now rejumped them for first place in the National League Central. Another team we went 5-1 against this year. So bring on that division in the NLDS, please, and thank you very much. And they find a way to keep Shohei quiet pretty much all series. Michael Harris robbing him of the only home run opportunity he had. They take 2 of 3 in that series. We'll start in Milwaukee. I'll go to you, Connor. What was your basic reaction after, they beat Milwaukee in a series the weekend prior? What was your initial thoughts going into that second round with them this last weekend when they played in Troost?
Yeah, it was a great homestand. Being able to sweep a team like Milwaukee, they're ahead of their division. All the while the Cubs are pretty hot right now. They're kind of sneaking up on them a little bit, but I just think they continue what they did last week when they were up there, and then they were able to do the same thing at home, which at first was a little bit of a struggle this year when they as they had a better record on the road. But I know they're starting to get things better going at home right now, and same thing with the Anaheim series. Other than that first game where the bats were a little cold, they took care of business the last 2 games, and they're able to go into the weekend series at Wrigley on a pretty high note.
And then Dylan, what about you? Milwaukee series.
3 high-scoring games. Our first takeaway. Obviously, the first game didn't go as well as we wanted it to for the debut of Yonny Chirinos, but most of the bullpen came in. It was pretty solid. Obviously, got a little bit scary at the end, just with some runs coming in that didn't need to come in. But overall, that game was fine. Second game, 11 runs. I'm just looking at it now just to make sure I got everything right. 11 runs. Elder, great. Taylor Hearns won in his first and maybe even only, I'm not entirely sure, Braves appearance, 4 runs given up. But again, 11 runs already scored by that point, so we were fine there. And in the last game of the series, 8-6. Again, not pretty per se. Smith-Shawver pitched 5 innings, 3 runs. McHugh gave up 3 runs. But then the rest of the bullpen came in and locked it down. And the offense, again, those 3 games, 29 runs, I believe. So 3-game series, 29 runs, pretty nice. And then I guess we can move into the Angel series a little bit as well. That continued. Not the last game of the series that I was, lucky enough to have witnessed in person, 12 runs. So, the offense is hot. We all know that the offense is going to be hot. The Milwaukee series was nice. Really nice to get up to, you said 5-1 against the Brewers this season. And and they're pushing towards the playoffs. Obviously, again, as Connor said, the Cubs are hot, and they decided to be keepers, not selling anybody, not selling anybody off yet at the deadline this season. So we'll see if that works out for them, obviously. But it's a decision they're sticking with right now. But Angel series first game was not too great. Second and third were. And you could take 2 out of 3 out of a pretty solid team. Pretty. I think they're underrated, honestly. Like they're getting more production out of the players than you would expect them to, even without Trout, obviously. And we shut down Ohtani. Basically, he had 2 singles, I believe, in the finale. But against Strider, he struck out twice and had like a ground out, something like that. He was not. And again, Harris robbed him of that home run in one of the games, in one of the first few games as well. So he was pretty much neutralized, which is nice to see. The pitching staff be able to step up and do that. So just hope they can keep it up in the road stand they're coming up on starting tomorrow.
Yeah, let's talk about that Friday game real quickly where they had Yonny Chirinos, a scrap from the Tampa Bay Rays that we talked about in last episode. I didn't think they'd have him as a starter guy. I think he's going to be that sixth starter down the stretch. It seems like if we have any more issues or anybody has to go to the IL, anybody has to skip a start, instead of them continuing to bring back up Schuster, Dodge, Shawver, Allard, every AAA arm they've called up, I think they're deciding that that's going to be their guy. And if you look at his baseball reference, there's not a lot to like. The lowest percentile in whiff rate, hardest percentile in hard hits allowed, but in his 2 starts with Atlanta, 2 wins, starting with that Milwaukee one on Friday night. I mean, the Brewers have never been one of the greatest offenses in the world. That's why the Braves are pretty much able to manhandle them in that 2021 NLDS on the way to the World Series. It's definitely great to get Sal Frelick finally out of our way. He was a pest over those 6 games or 5 games, being he debuted in the 1 game that Atlanta lost to Milwaukee this season. But him being able to just pitch well enough to beat Adrian Hauser out and let the offense help him out on Friday night was huge confidence going into Saturday, where Atlanta went back to their first inning magic with another 6-run first inning. And yeah, I mean, good for Taylor Hearn, and I'll tell you why. Being that he was with the Texas Rangers for the majority of the season before being a Brave for 1 inning. The dude has a really nice chance to win a World Series ring this year. He has been with the Texas Rangers and now the Atlanta Braves. And I'm not saying the Royals are going to make a run or anything, but a dude has been on 2 of the best teams in baseball this year and has a very elite chance to just randomly win a World Series ring. So just something to bring that out. He let William Contreras get his pity revenge homer in that 8th inning of work. But talk about Sunday afternoon. Matt Olson, 2 home runs, including that game winner against Joel Payamps, a guy who's been really disgusting this year in the Sean Murphy Contreras trade as well. Finding a meatball, putting it into the State Farm Braves bullpen, and securing that sweep was all too sweet. Connor, what game did you get a chance to watch the most of from that weekend series?
I believe I watched the Saturday game. That was definitely one of the better games of the series. I just felt like all around that they obviously they early in the game they got off a former Braves legend Julio Teheran pretty well, and just overall they kept piling on the runs and really made it hard for Milwaukee to come back in that game, and were able to keep the ball rolling into Sunday and continue with the sweep.
Yeah, talk about post-traumatic PTSD from Julio Teheran there in that Saturday game. How many times had we seen that man implode in the first inning, especially at SunTrust, then SunTrust Park, now Truist? It was very interesting to see that those ways continued his first start back. And I think, I'll give credit where credit is due. Julio Teheran was an ace at Turner Field. He was the dude. We signed him at 16 years old. He was a 4-time, 3-time All-Star for us, was an opening day starter like 7 straight years. I have no hate for the dude. And I wish him well in Milwaukee, but it was still very funny to see his first inning issues that he always had at SunTrust continue on that Saturday. And the Braves got a very fun sweep that weekend. We'll move on to the Angels series now. For the folks that are here for Micah, he's still dealing with some dog issues in the background. He is here backstage with us, but he's sitting the Braves segments out, it seems. So we hope that he'll be back for us by the time we talk some Atlanta Hawks and anything else non-related. Starting on that first game, game I got to be in attendance for the day before the trade deadline. The Braves lose that one in a 4-1. Another game where Charlie Morton was good enough, but also wasn't there when we needed him. Gave up a leadoff solo home run. Pretty much set the stone for the series. Dylan, go ahead.
I was just going to continue. I was just saying 3 solo homers that he allowed, which, kind of killed us right there. Obviously, the offense couldn't get going enough, but, continue with what you were saying about the first game.
Yeah, only 1 inning where the walks kind of gave him an issue, and that was the first one. But it's just, I don't know. I have such a love-hate with Charlie Morton, not talking what he did in the past, but talking this season specifically. Anytime I defend the dude, I'm called an idiot. I'm called a grandpa. I'm called anything of that sort. But anytime I do anything to bash the dude, it's, oh, well, he does so much for the team, and he has this sort of stat. It's just, you cannot win on social media saying anything about Charlie Morton because he has this many haters and he has this many supporters, and they do not like one another. And for what it's worth, 6 innings, 3 runs, sure, I'll take it. But it's the way he gets there. Charlie Morton is a walking quality start, but he walked 7 guys, 8 base hits, a couple home runs in the process. It was just your average Charlie Morton start. And he got outpitched by an Angels bullpen game. The starter ended up going 5 innings. He was supposed to go 2. The offense just didn't show up that night. Tough way in that 9th inning. Michael Harris robbing that run, or that 3-run home run from Ohtani, but Daysbel Hernandez was not able to lock in, keep them scoreless. Had a couple of chances. I know they intentionally walked Olson to face Travis twice, and he lined out and grounded out in both of those chances with the bases loaded, but just not the Braves' night, but they were able to bounce back in a great way. Tuesday and Wednesday going back-to-back, as you said, Tuesday night and Wednesday, securing another series win. And the thing that's really interesting to me is how much they crushed Giolito. It's a guy that you and I wanted. Just recently, we're talking about a very realistic choice, being that he was Max Fried's high school alumni, and it would be a great rental to add. He seemed like a Brave, and the Braves said, nah, we're going to demolish you. We're going to hit you to shreds, and had Angels fans crying to their mother. What was your biggest takeaway from that Wednesday afternoon game you saw in person, Dylan?
That game was a great game. Obviously, I was showing up, maybe about a week earlier. I got the tickets. I was thinking, okay, based on the rotation, Ohtani might pitch that day. Obviously, unfortunately for baseball fans, he did not. Instead, they had the new addition, Giolito, and I was thinking, okay, is Giolito versus Chirinos, the offense better show up? And we did. 12 runs. Had a back-to-back, the 6th back-to-back, I believe, from Riley and Olson this season. Had a great. I think I was in the Coca-Cola corner down left field for the big inning with Acuña's 3-run homer, and then everything that followed after that. So that was very fun to be a part of, obviously, and then the bullpen was great. I mean, bullpen, Chirinos went 5. That's what you can ask of him. That's probably even better than you probably could have asked of him, because he usually in his career historically has not been a true starter. Going 5, 3 runs, I'm fine with that. And that's the same kind of thing that Morton gave up, obviously, but Morton struggled through a lot more, and obviously the offense didn't help him out that day as much as the Braves offense helped Chirinos this day, which, as we're recording this, is yesterday, Wednesday, the afternoon game. It was a really fun game to be at, obviously. Had some great energy. It was also really cool. One thing I will say is that while we did shut down Shohei, besides a few singles that he had, like he didn't have any game-breaking or game-changing, impact or anything like that. It was really cool being in attendance and seeing so many like Japanese fans just being there, and they were like all like so close to the home plate area, like in the concourse, whether it be in the concourse or the seats, just like recording, just like everything. Anytime that Shohei's at the plate, which was really cool, just to see like how much of an impact that has in any city that he's playing in. So, just the series in general, great to get that sweep, and obviously now heading off to Chicago, I believe, to start the road trip starting tomorrow, and we'll be there for a little bit. So hopefully we can keep that momentum going in Chicago, and then Pittsburgh and New York, and then come back.
I'm currently in the process of watching the Cubs game as we record this. I always do that usually when we have an off night before our next opponent. I try to watch either a division game, or I try to watch the opponent that we're going to face tomorrow, because I want to see how much their bullpen is used. The more bullpen usage tonight from the Cubs, the better off the Braves are going into this weekend series, but that's neither here nor there. Connor, my question for you is, as we mentioned a couple minutes ago, Shohei was kind of kept at bay for most of the series. I think he had like a couple hits. Nothing really huge, though. Walked a couple times. Maybe that was a little bit of the reason he didn't get to do as much. Michael Harris robbed him, which I caught that on camera, which was awesome. I was just casually recording it and saw, Michael just casually tracked that ball. I said something along the lines of, Shohei's down 0-2, but it's Daysbel Hernandez, he's got him right where he wants him. That very pitch, boom, out to, the 400 sign. Harris brings it in, but Shohei didn't do a lot this series. Connor, how much of an impact do you think that was in the Braves finding a way to win the last 2 games?
Yeah, I think it had a big impact. I was there on Tuesday night, and Strider had a lot of success against him, other than a hard hit to Arcia, which it was hard to handle. He had a lot of success. And I thought keeping him at bay was a big contributor to the Braves being able to win those last 2 games. And I just wanted to talk about Michael Harris coming alive there on that Tuesday game, 2 home runs, and he's had a little bit of a struggle lately, but he's been turning it around, and I'm just glad that he's gotten out of his slump, and that we can move forward in this weekend with him with his bat intact.
And what's interesting is you brought up a couple minutes ago, Dylan, how you didn't get a chance to see Shohei pitch this year, and maybe the Braves dodge a bullet not having to face him. Now that we see the Angels every year, I think we're more willing to not have to face Shohei. It's still crazy though. The Braves have not faced Mike Trout since 2014, June 2014. We didn't end up facing the dude once in the dude's prime. We're not going to. The next time we face him in Atlanta is 2025. Who knows if he's healthy? Who knows if he's the star he is at that point? Because he's already 33 years old, already having to miss 50 games a year. It's really sad that the Braves really did not ever play that man. 2017, we go out to Anaheim. He and Freddie both get hurt going into that weekend series. 2020, we're supposed to play them on 4th of July. COVID happens. We ended up not playing him until last season. And in that season, he hurts his shin. He hurts his hamstring. He misses those 2 months before we play them. So it's very unfortunate to see. But we didn't get to face Mike Trout. But have faced Shohei the last couple of years. Dylan, I did get to see him start against the Braves last year. It was the first game after the All-Star break, and it was the best of both worlds. He went 6 scoreless, and I think we only had 2 hits. He was dominating us. So we got to see the Shohei factor, 6 scoreless. It was like, okay, this is fun. That 7th inning is when the Braves teed off for 7 runs. Matt Olson with a 3-run homer. Arcia hit a bomb. I'm pretty sure we ended up scoring 7 runs that inning, so we ended up knocking him out. But it was good to see that 6 innings of where he was just his dominant self. But Charlie Morton, ironically, was toe-to-toe with him, and we ended up winning that game. So maybe one day you will have the same odds as I did being able to watch Shohei pitch versus the Braves. But now that we face them every year, you got a chance in less than 2. And
I
Connor,
was in the I was at the game as well last year when Shohei kind of dominated. I believe he only had like 45 pitches through 6 innings. He was cruising along until it all kind of blew up in his face, and the Braves scored a bunch there in the 7th.
So yeah, that's pretty much all we got for that homestand. We'll talk about a little bit of headlines regarding the team itself. Connor, you brought up a great point about how Harris wasn't really in a slump, more of like a power surge. He hadn't hit a home run in about a month. I think the dude's still hitting like 370 with like an 880 OPS since June when he finally got that knee fully healthy, finally was able to turn his season around like the rest of the team did that month. The Braves are historically always good in June. They were again this year. And Harris has not looked back since then, found a way to still make the All-Star game after the terrible start he had. Somebody who did make the All-Star game and has been incredible this year, the new addition, Sean Murphy. In a little bit of a skid right now. He's 4 for his last 40 at the plate, 4 for his last 41 of something along that sort. And he had a 999 OPS when he started the All-Star game. It's down to 905 now. Travis is pretty much playing every other day. And, that's where Travis d'Arnaud comes in. It's not a lot of other teams have this luxury. Connor, I know you call him the donut man, just to be able to come in and rake for us as a platoon backup. But what does Sean Murphy have to do differently to get back onto a roll? I mean, it's great that he's still fine defensively back there. Travis has still done his part when he has started, but what does Sean Murphy have to change to get back to what he did, which got him to be the All-Star starter, Dylan?
I think honestly, obviously you said he went from about almost 1,000 OPS to, just over 900 now, and hasn't been too long. It's kind of a short time for that quick of a drastic decrease to happen. I don't really know what there is to say about, his slump. I feel like it's just great hitters go on cold stretches. That happens to everyone. Just seeing the ball better. Obviously, I don't play professional baseball, and none of us have, so we don't know what it's like at the highest level. But I think it's not really too much to worry about at the moment. I think obviously you were saying as well that Travis has been playing. Travis has been, again, it's great to have somebody that's a starting caliber guy who again we just extended it about a week or 2 ago to come in when every other day basically, or even sometimes together, which they haven't done as much recently, but it does happen sometimes. It's just a good asset to have. So and as far as Murphy, I don't know, just picking his pitches better. Maybe he's had some bad luck. I'm not entirely sure about the peripherals or the expected stats on some of his at bats, but I don't think it's too much of a factor right now, as long as the rest of the offense is humming as it is right now.
And then Connor, knowing that you're a huge Travis d'Arnaud fan, how excited were you for that extension, knowing that he and Sean are pretty much locked in together now for the next couple of years? And, how is his performance being able to pick up Sean Murphy help the Braves so far?
Yeah, I think the extension is a great move by Anthopoulos. Obviously, I'm a little biased as a fan of his, but the catching core of having both Murphy and Darno is one of the best in baseball, and I think whenever one guy is having a little bit is having some issues at the plate, the other guy will step in and kind of take his place, and I think that's what we're seeing now. While Murphy is his numbers are down a little bit, have been down since the All-Star break. Darno has kind of stepped in, and they're able to kind of alternate to kind of give Murphy some time to kind of self-reflect and get back to where he was.
So good stuff there. More of the good news now as we head into the future of the team. You know, Max Fried's rehab is complete, guys. He's starting tomorrow night for us on the night of August 4th. You got this game will probably be complete by the time the episode is up on the air on every other platform. But Kyle Hendricks versus Max Fried tomorrow night. I could easily see a world where the Braves do drop 2 or 3 in Wrigley this weekend with how hot that offense has been. They have been pretty much just as hot as us. Over the last 2 weeks, their offense is on fire like no other, and we see 2 of their better pitchers. So I'm not really expecting too much from Max Fried tomorrow night. Just give me 5 good innings, 5 innings, 2 runs. Show me that curveball is working. Show me that fastball is accurate. Show me that you look healthy and that you're fresh down the stretch, because we'll get into another topic later about, you know, the Braves starting pitching additions. They really need Max Fried to be himself. They really do, and this is the first start. Not expecting a lot going into tomorrow night, but just show me that you look good, your stuff is there, and do enough for us to win the game. Connor, do you think the Braves? I mean, what are you expecting from Max Fried tomorrow night?
Well, I'm expecting him to show a lot of what he's potentially might not be completely sharp since he's just coming back from his rehab, but I'm expecting him to at least put up a big fight. Hoping to try to limit the base runners, try to limit the long ball, but we'll see what kind of success he can have since it's been a little while since he's been out there.
And then Dylan, you?
Yeah, I mean, looking to obviously he had a rehab start that was pushed back. We talked about last time that was rained out from the second, I believe the July 15th start he was supposed to have. I'm not sure exactly the date on that, but he was able to get some more action in, live action for rehab, and now he's coming back up. I mean, it's nice, obviously, and you even said he better be at least somewhat close to what we expect of him, because otherwise we might not have the greatest, postseason outlook at the moment, just considering that starting pitching is huge for success in the postseason, and we're banking on him as well as Kyle Wright, who will come back and, maybe a few more from now, being, again, at least somewhat close to who we expect them to be and who we've seen them to be in the past few years. So I'm just looking for him, and he's starting tomorrow, I believe. Is that the matchup? I'm just looking
Max
for
Kyle Hendricks tomorrow night.
Kyle Hendricks, nice. Okay, yeah, I'm just a solid. I'm not hoping for a quality start. I'm not looking for that, like specifically the 6 innings, 3 runs or less, that kind of thing. Just something just that we can see that he's got a rhythm going, and whether he runs into some trouble sometimes, he might have a blow up inning that allows a few runs. I'm not too mad at that. It's his first start back in maybe about 3 or 4 months. So I'm just looking for some rhythm, and hopefully the velocity is there as well. That's one thing that obviously you want to look at from a guy coming back from any injury, especially an arm injury, that the velocity is back and that they're not being rushed back to the field too soon. If he's pumping 91, we're usually pumping 93, that kind of thing. Like, just look for some little stuff like that, and just see that he's got the rhythm going, and that he can pick it up for especially pitch count as well. Pick it up for as we get to in October as well.
And yeah, I don't think it can be overstated. We talked about this last episode. The Braves will not win a World Series this year and get that second ring the 90s era couldn't. Without Max Fried, they won't. Kyle Wright is already as much of a question mark. You don't know how Max Fried is going to be this October. If he is not who we think he is, being they did not get another rental at the deadline, I don't know what you can do, man. Because last year they had a really healthy rotation going into the playoffs, and all hell broke loose. Max Fried had a stomach bug. Strider had oblique issues. Morton got to come back off the elbow. Kyle Wright was the only guy who worth a damn in the series last year, and he's the one that's hurt right now. And it's pretty much the same team as of right now. You added back Mike Soroka. He hasn't really proved himself yet. We hope he does down the stretch. Bryce Elder is taking that next step. How long does that last? We don't know. But the Braves will not win a second ring this year and they might not even end up re-signing him after 2024 if he is not himself this postseason. And so I don't think that can be any overstated. Not putting a lot of pressure on him tomorrow night, but just for the overstatement, he has to be himself and he has to be elite throughout the rest of the season, going into October, and continue that way if the Braves do want to win this ring to consider themselves a dynasty. Let's talk about this road trip real quickly before we end up moving on into the rest of the topics. The Braves have a big series coming up. Of course, starting tomorrow. We talked about the Cub series, but moving past that, they got a big rivalry series coming up in Queens. It's a 4-gamer with a doubleheader on Saturday afternoon. That could end up being a really big game for the Braves. I know the Mets have not been themselves this year, but still a rivalry matchup here in their place. I would kind of expect the Braves to end up splitting that 4-game series, being the month that they have schedule wise. And then they have a 4-gamer in Pittsburgh. I'm thinking they'll take at least 3. The Pirates have not been this terrible club. They have been over the years, but they have kind of fickled out. They sold at the deadline. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So over these next 3 series, Connor, what are your predictions for the club?
Yeah, obviously the Cubs are a really hot team right now. I believe the Braves will go in there and match their energy as they've taken a commanding lead in the NL East. Obviously the Mets seems like the Mets have been waving the white flag as right now. They've been trading both of their 2 best pitchers, Verlander and Scherzer, both to AL Central teams. And I just think they're going through a big process now of trying to regroup and trying to get themselves together for next year or for the next few seasons to come as they try to kind of go through a rebuild of sorts with what their situation is right now. With not only the Braves contending, but you have the Phillies and Marlins going at it right now as well, trying to fight for a wild card spot.
And I think they just wrapped up a series last night. The Phillies did end up taking 2 or 3, but the Marlins came back from 5-0 late, including a walk-off after Trey Turner just had one of the worst games of his career. The Marlins come back to win that one in 12 innings. You know what? It would feed families to see the Phillies miss the playoffs. It really, really would. It'd be awesome to see those guys find a way to not be a part of October. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't want to run it back with them. There'd be a lot of other teams I'd be willing to see in the NLDS not name the Phillies, because it'd be the same exact situation. They'd be hot coming off a wild card series win. The Braves would have home field, and the Phillies play us really well. They usually find a way to win a couple games at Truist every series, and Atlanta doesn't play very well in Philadelphia. It'd be the exact same script as last year, and I'm trying to avoid it. NLCS, bring it on. Barbecue chicken. I'm not really afraid of the Phillies over a 4-7 series, but in a 3-5. With how well they know us, anything can happen. We saw it last year. That bat slam is never going to be able to live down. See what's funny? They lost, right? They lost. Nobody ever remembers the losers unless you're a Phillies fan. They play that bat slam so much.
Yeah, I just it always seems like it's the hottest teams that make it there. Obviously, the Braves 2 years ago when they won it all, they started off slow, but towards the end of the regular season they started kicking into gear and they went all the way and won it all. But the Phillies, in their situation, they were the hottest team, but cooled off just as the Astros were starting to heat up in the World Series, and the Astros ended up not looking back, and they took it from them.
Yeah, basically, once the Phillies got no hit, it was over from them. Nobody ever remembers the loser. We know it as Falcons fans, but unless you're a Philadelphia sports fan, you're still on top of the world for becoming in second place and being flukes as they were. So, last topic about the Braves tonight. Welcome back to you, Micah, by the way. But talking about the trade deadline and review, the Braves did end up making 3 moves, not including the Taylor Hearn one. First one was they added 2 Rockies relievers, and Micah, you and I talked about this last episode. We predicted they would get a rental lefty reliever, a high Ks per 9, high strikeouts righty reliever. We thought they might make some random position player move of some sort. That turned out to be Nicky Lopez, just someone to add depth to the bench and provide a little more than what your bench currently has. But the one thing I think the Braves really missed on is they didn't get that rental starter. As we just talked about with Max Fried and with Dylan on stage, they are already tested as it is. Even if they would have added a rental piece, I got a lot of hate on Twitter that day for saying they needed to make that move, whoever it was, Because if Max Fried is not himself, and if Kyle Wright doesn't come back, which I don't even know if he's going to come back at this point. I really don't. We're screwed. Like, I don't trust Charlie Morton right now. I mean, in the playoffs, sure, things can turn around. There's still 2 months. He has gotten his money over the years into his age 39 season for winning like 3 World Series the last 5 years. He's very much a playoff pitcher. If Max Fried's healthy, I trust him, sure. Strider, sure. But in his one playoff game last year, injured or not, he got lit up. 6 runs over like 2 1/3. That can't happen. Bryce Elder hasn't proved it yet. Like, just adding one more rental starter, now they can't. The deadline's passed. There's no more waiver wire. There's no more DFA acquisitions. That went away with the new CBA. This is the team, and they better hope that they stay healthy. And I don't think people realize, I get we have guys coming back. I have applauded that. I've said, I know we have AJ, Dylan, Nick, Jesse, Kyle, Max, etc., all coming back. But that doesn't mean injuries are just going to go away. And the first year of the pitch clock, all the starters and pitchers are getting hurt because of it. When we get Max Fried and Kyle Wright back, who's to say Charlie Morton's not going to get hurt? Who's to say Bryce Elder's not going to have issues? We don't know that. So just adding a piece, I would have liked it if it would have been Eduardo Rodriguez, that lefty from Detroit. He had a player opt in. He pitches well with us. You'd think he's probably going to want to stick around. You have him under control till 2026. Really good pitcher throughout his career. I think that would have been the last piece, like Thanos putting in that last stone for the Braves team. But, Alex decided to go a little bit of the cheap route. I know he won us that 2021 World Series at the deadline, but I learned this year, you cannot expect a lot at the deadline. You can't. Because I don't know if Pierce Johnson, Brad Hand, and Nicky Lopez is what's going to put the Braves from here to here. I don't. So we just better hope that this bullpen gets healthier. I do like the 2 additions. I do like what Nicky Lopez brings. We'll talk about him in a second, Connor. But yeah, for what it's worth, I really do think they should have added one more starter, because if we don't win the World Series this year and we're healthy in the postseason, that's what it's going to come down to. We don't have enough starting pitching. We saw it in 2020. We ran out of gas. 2021, they got very, very lucky. When Charlie Morton went down in that World Series, they were pitching Tucker Davidson and Dylan Lee as starters. I don't know how we did it, but we did. Ian Anderson has since gotten Tommy John. Charlie Morton's regressed. You can't rely on the past to repeat, as we learned. So that's it for me regarding the starter rant. But I'll start with you, Connor. What were your things to like about them? Getting Brad Hand, experienced lefty. He's a rental. He basically is your max. He's basically going to be Tyler Matzek's role, and so you get him back next year, along with Pierce Johnson. Slides every other righty that struggled this year back a role. How do you like those pickups?
Yeah, I thought the Brad Hand pickup, I thought it was pretty decent with what they had. I think getting experienced reliever like that, I know his numbers aren't amazing this year, but you have someone with experience who's been around. He's been in Braves mark. He's been in every NL East team right now since he joined the Braves. So he kind of knows the division a little bit. I'm not sure how many players are remaining in the division that were for players that he's faced, but then again, he has the experience. And yeah, I'm also disappointed that the Braves didn't get a starting pitcher or a guy like Michael Lorenzen, who's been around a while. Kind of let that opportunity slip through the cracks a little bit, and he ended up with the Phillies. So yeah, it's a little hard to handle with that, but I feel like with the guys coming back from injury in the bullpen, obviously Fried coming back for starting for us, I think the situation is pretty good right now. As regards to Nicky Lopez, I think it's good for depth, but I don't know that he's really going to be an ideal starter. But if he has to play, I think he'll be a solid replacement.
Yeah, it definitely gives you a little bit more than what Adrianza and Culberson have this year as that like 26th roster spot. A lot better speed-wise. He could probably steal a base. He's Gold Glove defense, but he's a shortstop. I don't think you want to take out Ozzie or RC or even Riley's glove for that matter to replace him with Lopez. I guess we'll see how things come for the postseason. We talked about Forrest Wall earlier. We don't really need another Terrence Gore for this postseason. That's going to be Forrest Wall. I'm pretty sure they expanded the rosters this year for 28 guys come the playoffs. So that allows a spot for the Braves to keep Ben Heller up for the playoffs if they want, and allows a guy like Chadwick Tromp, a third catcher, or Forrest Wall, a spot on the roster without having to remove other pieces that you've had throughout the season, like Hilliard, like Pilar, um, like Nick Anderson when he comes back. So I do like that new CBA thing that there is. I'm pretty sure, I'm like 95% sure there's a 28-man roster for the playoffs, and not your average 26, so you're able to add in there, a base stealer, an emergency catcher, another reliever, something along those sorts, and I'm sure the Braves will exercise that as they need to. But yeah, for Brad Hand, stats aren't great this year. I think he's 33 years old, but he's pitched in Coors Field, just like Pierce Johnson. If you're 33 years old and you're able to pitch to like a 4.4 ERA in Coors, you're doing something pretty good. It has like a 144 batting average against lefties. They're going to be able to bring him in middle relief, kind of like the Tyler Matzek role. Go get lefty at bats. Being you don't know to what he was. AJ Minter has not been himself all season. If he is, you're fine in that regard. He's just come back in the last week, so I really do like that addition in Pierce Johnson as well. Colin McHugh and Kirby Yates have regressed this year. Their age is starting to catch up to them. You adding them allows a spot for McHugh and Kirby Yates to be pushed back. It's able to push Nick Anderson and Ben Heller or Jesse Chavez, even if they're struggling, back an inning. And that helps the depth of your bullpen. Now, like as I said, if they would have got a starter, the better your rotation is, the less you have to use that bullpen. And the better your bullpen is, the fresher it is. That's why the Braves' rotation being a carousel this year and the bullpen being a carousel this year has been like oil and water. They do not mix. They have not been able to have consistent pitching, being that the bullpen has been constantly up and down, and same with the rotation. So I'm knocking on wood that all of a sudden that no more injuries happen the rest of the year, because if they do, it'll be an awesome regular season. But I'll be very shocked if they end up winning it all. Mike, any quick thoughts you have on the trade deadline acquisitions? I know that you haven't said a lot this show, but you've been here, so any Braves thoughts about anything?
I can't speak much on the players that we added, but I can't say that I agree with Alex not going to get another starting caliber pitcher with the Brave circumstances right now, because he's betting on the Max Fried to come back and beat him, stay healthy. He's betting on the rest of the rotation to stay healthy, and I just don't agree with that, because it's so many things that can go wrong, and we had a chance to go out there and get another starting caliber pitcher, but I guess he, like I said, is banking on the current players that we have to stay healthy.
Yeah, it's what was I gonna say? The thing that bothers me the most is it's not like we were being very unrealistic. I knew that they were never in line for Justin Verlander. I knew that was just the Braves doing their due diligence. I knew they were never really going to go get guys like Giolito, like Lorenzen, like Jordan Montgomery. I wasn't asking to go get the best guy on the market. I knew that wasn't the case. I was like, you get them on a rental deal. They just provide some inning eating for you. They just provide a little bit of length. So yeah, like Mike, I'm very surprised they didn't make a single trade with the White Sox. I thought the Braves would definitely at least make one deal with that team that had pretty much everything we had to offer. We talked about it, but they didn't. This is the team they have. If everybody gets healthy, maybe another guy from AAA comes up from the bullpen to sticks in the rotation, whether that's Schuster, whether that's Shawver, whether that's, Forrest Wall, Chadwick Tromp, maybe somebody else from the minors sticks, and it's great for us down the stretch. But as of right now, I'm not so sure that's going to be the case. But I think that's pretty much it for the Atlanta Braves regarding tonight's episode. Any other closing thoughts you guys have before we move on?
Nope.
So we'll do just that. So we're going to have to shuffle around a little bit. Thanks to Dylan, dipping on us early, real professional from him there. So we're going to talk about our college football teams real quick. Dylan, in the form of Mike and Neil, you're going to tell us what's been going on around Athens. So I'm looking for this headline real quick. What's going on in Athens, Dylan, as you are?
I mean,
Take the
I
floor.
haven't really been keeping up with UGA over the summer with how much can change with the new transfer portal and and all that. But like I said in the last episode, um, I'm expecting this team to come back. I won't say better, but still be the top team in college football. And I've seen a couple of power rankings from different outlets like ESPN and all that, and it's people doubting UGA again. That's the last thing that people need to give Kirby Smart, because like
Are they though? Are they really doubting UGA? Let's be real here.
I don't know about that.
I've seen it, and like I said with the last national championship, they had interviewing the players, and I guess Kirby had them showing them posts and stuff where they said we was going to win 6 games and all that. I didn't hear that part, but that's what the players were saying. So
whoever said that is such baloney.
Kirby was feeding them some. Yeah, so they just added more fuel for them.
Yeah, it's the last thing they use more
is that
fuel.
All right, moving down to the flats. I'm moving over to the ginger on the other side of the screen for me, the big Georgia Tech fan Connor is. What's been going on down there, bud?
Yeah, we're just looking forward to a new year at the flats. Brent Key will be his first full year as the Tech head coach. I'm really excited that they decided that Jay Batt decided to sign him long term, and right now we have a quarterback, a little bit of a quarterback competition. We got the senior transfer Haynes King from Texas A&M and redshirt freshman, Zach Pyron from who appeared in 3 games last year, including a road win against Virginia Tech, and so he's shown a lot of signs of potential, and I'm really excited to see how they evaluate the quarterbacks. Moving on to opening week, they face Louisville at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which a Friday night game, September 1st. I think that'll be a very interesting game to go to and view. I'll be in attendance myself. I'm really not really quite certain of what kind of team Louisville has this year, but I expect Tech to put up a good fight against them. Hopefully, they'll come out with the win into week 2.
And then do you have any other thing recruiting-wise? I know, my childhood friend Benjamin Galloway is going to be playing on that nose tackle position for them this year. What have you heard regarding his role so far?
Yeah, I haven't heard much regarding him as of yet, but I know we have many new acquisitions. Obviously, the quarterback from Texas A&M. We also have Dominic Blaylock, that transfer from Georgia, coming in. He's going to be a big piece to the wide receiving core, and I'm just ready to get to see him in action.
Yeah.
And
Wilson alumni.
Yep, and be a big contributor to the team as a whole in the Brent Key's offense.
Micah, how does that departure of Dominic Blaylock feel for Georgia? Probably doesn't feel any hole for you guys, but what are your thoughts on him transferring down south?
I mean, he did what was best for him, I guess, but left the best team. So
he's got 2 rings. He's got to play now. He's got his rings. Now he needs some play time
for himself.
And then
I understand.
Connors, what does Georgia Tech have to do to finally get to a bowl game this year? You guys had like the longest streak in FBS history. It was broken. Like I think you missed 4 out of the last 5 years. They have to start out hot this year. The Georgia Tech has to win 3 of their first 4 games if they want a chance at a bowl game this year. So if that's the case, what has to be done differently that wasn't done under Coach Collins, under Coach Key to get that bowl game? Because I know a lot of you guys in the Tech fandom world really want to see you guys back playing in a game.
Yeah, it's just been kind of a lot of the coaching has been a big part of their not being able to succeed. I believe their last bowl game was against Kentucky, in which they defeated them in the Tech Slayer Bowl. I think that was 2018, if I recall. And obviously the 10-year Coach Collins he didn't last very long because It was evident from the get-go that he wasn't the proper fit for the program, and it showed a lot last year before he was fired that you'd have the same issues every week. You have players lining up off sides. You have players misunderstanding the play. And overall, it was the same mistakes every single week. So and it was just not a good situation for the team. And I think they're ready to turn the page on this new chapter with Brent Key as their head coach. And I think they're looking forward to having a much better year this year. And I agree that it's in their best interest to start hot this year if they want to reach a bowl game, because it gets tough after the first. I believe week 5 is when the going gets tough, and they don't want to fall behind too quickly if they want to break that bowless streak here. And I think if they can stay healthy, of course, they have the roster that can do it.
See, the thing that's interesting to me is, one of Coach Johnson's, or not Coach Johnson, Coach Collins' things that got him the job at Georgia Tech. He was a good defensive coordinator at multiple stops, but he was also elite as a special teams guy. But every single week I watched the Georgia Tech game. Now, granted, I used to watch almost every Georgia Tech game until they moved to ACC Network. My cable provider didn't pick up ACC Network for like the first 2 years in existence. So I got to miss a lot of Georgia Tech's games. And granted, they weren't very fun to watch from what I've heard from you, Connor. The thing that stuck out most to me is how awful their special teams was in year 4 of Coach Collins.
Exactly, and I think that was
so many block punts, so many,
right. Yeah, I think that was the nail in the coffin. Just having the same issues every single week. You'd have players on the special teams not blocking the defense and getting punts blocked. You have players again just misunderstanding the play and a lot of confusion on the field. And Jeff Sims wasn't very well coached by Collins, in my opinion. It seemed like he would kind of get a little too fancy, if you will. He wouldn't try to stick to the fundamentals. He'd try to make a big play when it wasn't there, and it would ultimately backfire. Then obviously that's what led to disaster ultimately. And I think the quarterback change was Zach Pyron upon when Coach Key took over. I think that made a big difference in their run when they went 2-2 in their last 4 games, including a win on the road. Impressive road win when Pyron kind of fell behind and he came back late in the game and took the game up in Blacksburg. And I think bringing in a sort of mentor like Haynes King, who's been in the SEC, who's kind of been around a little bit, will make a good influence on them.
And so you brought up Jeff Sims for a second. Of course, he had a lot of potential going into Georgia Tech. The first couple weeks I watched him, I'm like, this guy looks like a dude. Got hurt in his year. It's unfortunate for him, kind of backed up his progress, but, he came back, played a little bit for you guys over the last year and change. Now transferred to Nebraska. That's a program that's in a similar spot as Georgia Tech. They missed on their hire with Scott Frost. They were trying to get back to their glory days in the 90s. And, granted, Georgia Tech and Nebraska were both pretty good teams throughout the early 2010s as well. What are you expecting from Jeff Sims, back up in Big Ten country for the Huskers?
Yeah, I just think it was in his best interest to leave Tech. I like him as a person. There was no hard feelings with him, but I just feel like with Coach Key's offense, he felt like it was time to bring in someone new and someone who's been in a conference like the SEC. He's kind of faced those opponents, and I just feel like being in the conference like the Big Ten is a good fit for Jeff Sims and kind of be a good way to end his college career, and we'll see how that takes off in the end. But I would say I wish the best to him, and I hope he succeeds there.
You got any other final thoughts on the Jackets?
I'm cautiously optimistic for this year. I say they go 6-6 and they make a pretty good bowl, but we'll see what happens. I think the key elements are that they, whenever there's an issue, that they practice on it, they fix the issues. And I hate to call out Jeff Collins, but it seemed like he didn't. It wasn't
call him out, dude. He deserves it.
Yeah. I think it serves him better as a defensive coordinator. Granted, it seemed like when he wasn't in charge of the defense while he was at Tech, the defense played better. So I think it's just a coaching issue that was a big contributor to it. But I just don't think he's head coaching material, and I think Brent Key is, at least for right now, I think he's a good solution for that.
Yeah, it sounds like he's Dan Quinn and Georgia Tech colors, because you mentioned it. Like, Dan Quinn was all about the culture. Dan Quinn was all about this, but he was never a good defensive coach. This seems like he was the only defensive guru I've ever heard of that lost his position at DC twice, which he did with the Falcons. And the defense seemed to play better when Dan Quinn was not under the charge of DC. But yeah, it seems like Jeff Collins seems like a good dude. He loves trying to build the culture. He tried bringing in the 404, bringing in, the Atlanta rap style, using Waffle House, using a lot of things that was very ATL based. He brought some things with him from Temple and his stops at Florida. And, as a Florida fan, he was a really good defensive coordinator for the Gators under Jim McElwain and Will Muschamp. He was very elite. Had us in the top 10 defense a couple years in a row. Using the money down. He was very much a swagger, like players first coach. But, as you could see, he made the same mistakes year one as he did year four, and it was just never going to be a thing. It was the same thing with Dan Quinn. He made the same mistake in year six that he made in year one, and you could see that progression was never going to come, and it cost Georgia Tech years off their franchise, just like Dan Quinn did with the Falcons. We'll get into that later, though. Moving over to the Atlanta Hawks, I know Mike is just itching to talk about these boys. So yeah, we're gonna start. We talked about in our first episode about Pascal Siakam, and then the trade seems to have fallen through for now regarding most of the rumors. But the latest notch in the thing is that they're interested in the Hawks rookie Kobe Buffkin. We talked about him in the most recent episode, how his summer league went, but yeah, he's eligible to be traded now. So what does this mean for the Siakam mood as we now sit here on the 3rd of August? Micah, take it away.
Like you said, Kobe is now eligible to be traded. Had to wait the 30 days after he signed his contract, and I believe that was July 2nd, July 3rd, one of those days that he signed the contract. And here we are, August 3rd, and many Hawks fans still waiting to see if the Hawks will make the trade, if the Raptors will budge, if the Raptors GM will be open to make the trade, because like I've said in the past few episodes that we talked about this, a lot of teams don't like trading with him because he overpriced his players. But I honestly don't understand his vision right now with Dennis Schroeder being his starting point guard, but that's another conversation. But like I said, many Hawks fans are still waiting to see if the Hawks and the Raptors have a deal. And with other news, the Mavericks are really trying to get Clint Capella from the Hawks. They've wanted him for a while, and like we've seen in many rumors, they would be a third team in a possible Siakam deal. But if we can't get that deal, I don't see Capella being moved at this point. He may be moved at trade deadline if this trade isn't made with Siakam, but at this point right now, if we don't have a Siakam trade, I don't see a Capella trade.
See, I'm actually going to disagree with you on that regard. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, just regarding Masai, you called it in the first episode. It seems like at that point, the Siakam trade to the Hawks was pretty much inevitable. It was just a matter of how long it would be and what we'd be giving up. It just seems like it seemed like everything was too hot for it not to happen. Like, he was following Trey on socials. He got one of the Raptors training staff to move to Atlanta. He was spotted in Atlanta. Everybody was working together. It seemed like it was going to happen. But as you mentioned, that GM is so hard to work with. You have no clue how long it'll take. And it seems like the Hawks are finally drawing a line in the sand. They have to get ready for the season, and this roster is still not competable. They are the same exact team last year, minus John Collins. And while John Collins is not the player he was a couple years ago, he still provided us 16, 17 a game. And the Hawks were a playing team. So you're telling me, even we discussed this at length before, I like that it's Quinn Snyder and not Nick McMillan. I can trust that regard. but I'm not willing to run it back a third straight year. And with this roster right now, that is exactly what they're doing. This team hasn't shown me enough that they're willing to go all in. And that's what you need to be doing with Trae Young in his prime, DeJounte Murray extended. You have some guys that are still on rookie deals, like Jalen, like AJ, like Kobe if you end up not making this Pascal Siakam trade. But it seems like the Hawks are, if this deal is not done by Saturday, the Hawks are pivoting. And they're going to say, you know what, Masai? It was nice talking to you guys. It was nice playing your game, but you can keep Siakam. And we'll be happy to talk with him for free without your regard a year from now when he hits free agency. Because as you mentioned, Micah, that free agency is stacked. And it just makes no sense to me what the Raptors' sense is in keeping him. They want 4 first-round picks for OG Anunoby. What the hell are y'all talking about? You let Fran VanVleet go for nothing. Scotty Barnes completely, did not look like his rookie self in a sophomore year. I do expect a little bit of a bounce back. But it's just ridiculous to see how much of a toy the Raptors organization is. They were worse than us last year, and we were the most mid-team of all time. You expect them to get better? Like, if let's say Siakam is on the Hawks, or excuse me, Siakam is on the Raptors come this fall. If they are a better team than us, I'm going to put them in that same category I put Brooklyn. If either of those teams are ahead of this Hawks team next year with Quinn Snyder, with everything being changed, just an embarrassment. Just an embarrassment to see where those teams are and still finding a way to finish ahead of the Hawks. So yeah, a couple years ago, I was really high on the Hawks. I was super happy for the future of this franchise. I've come way back down. And the Siakam trade had a chance to flip the script, but it seems like it's not going to happen. Connor, I know you've been sitting there for a couple of minutes. I don't know if you've been so in keep with the Siakam rumors and everything, but like, what do you think Siakam could have brought to this team if everything went to plan? Because it was an amazing fit.
Yeah, I think it was a good fit, and I still think it is. I think you bring a lot of that experience to the team. Obviously, the team needs it right now. It seems like they're stuck in place a little bit, and they need kind of a big star to come in and kind of fill those shoes. I just think that it's a trade that could happen, and it seems like the Raptors are kind of stalling out a little bit on making the move.
To add to what Connor said, like he said, Pascal would bring a lot to this team with his championship experience. He's won a ring. He's a veteran. He'd be good for the Jalen Johnson, the Muhammad Gay. Like, there's so much that he could bring to this team, and I don't think the Hawks are at the point where they're questioning his fit or anything. It's just whether the Raptors will get to the point where they see they have no future with him, because they lost their starting point guard and downgraded majorly, and they're still trying to hold on to him. And I honestly, like I said, don't understand what Matt Shaw is looking or thinking it. So yeah.
And for those of us at home, what are some other deals in the past that the Raptors have really fumbled around with that took forever? So the casual, NBA fan in general knows what we're dealing with here. In regards to Siakam, just nothing happening.
I mean, we seen just to go back to their championship year. Well, the trade worked for them, but they traded their franchise guy, the guy that they told they wasn't going to trade, and DeMar DeRozan. They told him that he wasn't going to be traded. He had nothing to worry about. Then they ended up trading him, and they got a nice value out of him with Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green for DeMar and Jakob Portal. Can't say his name, but yeah, that was a situation where the Raptors overpriced DeMar, and the Spurs went for it because they was heading towards a rebuild. But at this point, the difference with that is the Hawks are trying to win, and the Raptors are just trying to hold on to something that is over with.
And yeah, it's just, if the Hawks want to find a way to get themselves out of this mediocrity that it has been the last 2.5 years, they need another move like this. Because, I can't have DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella on my team again. Maybe one. I'd be willing to keep one, not both. There's just not enough change on this team for them to take that step that they need to get out of this middle ground. It's just, we still got a couple of months toward the season starts. the preseason doesn't start for another 2 months. There's still going to be a couple moves out there, but like as of right now, is Wesley Matthews and Patty Mills the reason the Hawks are not in the play-in? And Quinn Snyder over Nate McMillan, is that the reason, Micah? I don't think so. What about you?
No, I really think if the Hawks don't make this move with Siakam, they're hoping and banking on Quinn Snyder coming in and making a huge difference than what Nate McMillan had. And I wouldn't trust that, but at the same time you got Jalen Johnson coming into what looks like year 2 to us because he didn't play much or at all his first year, but got him coming back after a good year. You got DeJounte Murray, he's been in the gym working. Yeah, DeJounte Murray's been in the gym working. We've seen Trey in the gym working. We've seen DeAndre Hunter in the gym working. So I could see what they may see if the Siakam trade doesn't happen, but I don't think that's a formula for winning. Making just a coaching change, but losing a 16-point per game scorer. We're not going to become a better team, and if we do, we're not going to be a team that's better than playing talent teams.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we've been fooled by this before. We've heard the story many times of, oh, this guy's in the gym. Oh, this guy's in the gym. This guy's working with so-and-so. This guy's going to take the next step. It never freaking happens. It never does. So at some point, I just got to start seeing results. And I might sound a little pessimistic, but it's because I want what's best for the Hawks. And I'm not trying to continue to fall into this narrative that has, fooled us the last couple of years. Connor, from the stuff you've seen, like, what needs to change?
I think bringing in Quinn Snyder was a big part of bringing the team around, and I think in the years forward they just make a big trade like Siakam. I know it hasn't been as we would have liked to have him by now, but I think it's just as important to kind of look around and see who else we can get to kind of add on and kind of support him if he does come.
But the only issue is it's August. You've waited so long. There's not a lot left out there. And unless you want to go in for Karl Anthony Towns, but I don't know about that one. Mike, it was 60 seconds. Well, but if they had to pivot to that, well, how would that go? Be realistic with us. Don't BS.
I personally do not like Cat at all, so I'm gonna try to keep the bias out of it. But at the same time, with keeping my bias out of it, I honestly don't see his fit with this team with Onyeka Okongwu coming up, and they're looking for him to be the future center. And we've seen how it is putting Cat next to another big in Minnesota. Didn't work out too well for him, so I don't think it worked too well here.
So, you mentioned a minute ago how you don't think they'd be able to do anything else if this Siakam thing doesn't go down. I don't think that's the case. I have heard things, and that's why I said that the Hawks are pretty much, once Friday passes, they'll maybe give one more call Saturday. If the trade is not complete by Saturday, it's not happening. You can kiss the Siakam thing goodbye. But what I do think is going to happen is they're gonna give Clint Capella to Dallas like what the league wants. And honestly, the return doesn't seem that bad. It looks like we'd be getting either JaVale McGee, who I wanted on the Hawks like 2 years ago, and a first-round pick, either that or Josh Green. And getting a 2-for-1 for Clint Capella at his point, because I don't know why Luka and Kyrie want him so bad, but that's the center they want to work with. So, go, have at it. Have fun, with his 30 missed, layups a game. But, he'll get you a double-double for your prize picks money. That's what's good. He'll be good in the locker room. He's got the little fun little hair patch. But, yeah, I mean, if that were to be a thing, if they're going to get, JaVale McGee and either a first or Josh Green, would you take it for what it is regarding, Siakam falling through?
That's a tough one with, like you said, it's August. And going from Capella and Okongwu to Okongwu and McGee it's a downgrade at this point, but and if we go to Green, we have to be looking for another center, and it's like what center is out there. So with free agency, the center position thin. And yeah, you got players like Marcus Cousins out there, but what does he have left for us? What can he bring? Can he stay healthy and all that? And then you got like I said, it's not much out there for us to get because if we make a Capella trade, it have to be followed by another trade to get another center for this team because I don't see a way we upgrade with making a Capella trade at this point right now.
I don't know about that one. Being it is year 4 for Okongwu, I think we do have to see him start eventually. And honestly, I don't think JaVale McGee would be bad as a backup center. He's definitely a lot more serviceable at this point than DeMarcus Boogie Cousins is. But we talked about this last episode with Muhammad Gay. We think he's probably the future backup center, but I don't think he's quite there yet. He's probably going to take a year of development in College Park. I mean, there's rumors the Hawks might look at him more as a 4 and maybe Jalen Johnson's backup. Who knows? As a future bench piece. But I would not be mad if it was Okongwu finally getting a start and JaVale McGee and Bruno Fernando being the backup centers because Bruno did get better as a backup center since being traded to Houston and originally Boston, then flipped to Houston. He came back. He was definitely a lot better player than what the Hawks drafted on draft night. But I do think that I don't know if it'd be a downgrade per se, but it's definitely not a huge upgrade because if you look at the Hawks roster on paper, let's say they make that move, let's say they get the first with JaVale McGee. You look on paper, the roster's not bad, but when is the Hawks roster on paper ever bad? It's about them taking care of business and beating the lesser teams getting out of the play-in because you look at it, right? You got Trey, DeJounte, DeAndre. Who's your starting 4? Jalen? Jalen and Onyeka starting? I don't know about that one. And then off the bench, you got probably Sadiq would probably be the starting 4. And then off the bench, you'd have Bogey and Jalen as like your first 2 off the bench. Your backup point guard minutes would go to Patty Mills. Kobe Buffkin and Wesley Matthews would probably switch off, cracking the rotation, along with JaVale McGee. That's a play-in team if I've ever heard one. That's where we are. And we can't waste a third year of Trae Young's prime. This Capella trade has to go through if the Siakam thing happens. And as of right now, I've changed my aspect. I don't think it's happening. I think it's going to be another winner of sorrow Hawks basketball. And it's unfortunate to see. But and brighter news, talked about Jalen Johnson a second ago. Let's talk about the guys in the gym. This is different than what most of our players have been the last couple of years. They've been in the gym, but they haven't been in the gym with the greatest player of this generation, aka LeBron James. How excited did this make you, Micah?
I mean, just seeing Jalen Johnson getting the opportunity to work out with somebody, LeBron James, like somebody like LeBron James, who, as you said, is the best player of this generation and arguably the GOAT for some people. That's huge because Jalen Johnson has the opportunity to pick LeBron's brains, learn from him, and like Jalen Johnson, G League coach said in his rookie year, they was calling him the LeBron of the G League, the LeBron of G League. So being able to learn from a player that his G League coach was probably modeling him after or using him as, it's nice to see. And hopefully he gets some stuff from LeBron where we seeing him and LeBron have something in common where they both can dribble, take the ball up, and they're both good passers. So hopefully he learns something from LeBron.
Funny thing forgot to mention from the Braves earlier, I just saw while watching MLB TV, they showed a commercial break on MLB TV. They showed the Braves triple play they had up in Boston. So just want to shout that out real quick. The Braves up in Fenway, they had their first triple play ever since the year 2004, and a game that was a blowout, but it was still really cool to have. So just wanted to say that real quick. But yeah, Connor, speaking on Jalen Johnson, what are you expecting from him in year 3, and how much do you think LeBron can help him out here? Because we need him to take that next step more than maybe Onyeka did.
Yeah, I just think, working out with LeBron, I think will have a lasting impact on him, and I think he'll show lots of signs of improvement and be a big contributor to this team as a whole, and kind of find his way, find his his part as a teammate throughout the season.
And then regarding someone who I wouldn't really care if he was on the roster this year, more so than not, What's the latest issue with DeAndre Hunter, Micah? Issue.
He's been working out. They've been posting multiple clips, highlights of him in the gym. Last year we seen him working on his mid range game, turnarounds and all that. But this year, he's working on his 3-point game, and that's something that was very, very, very inconsistent last year. And that's something encouraging to see. Given that, like I said, he is very inconsistent on the 3-point line. If he remains on the roster and he's able to get his 3-point numbers back up, that'd be huge for us. And if he can be that player that we seen in Game 5 of that Miami series 2 years ago in the playoffs, that'd be huge for this team. And that's the type of player we need on this team.
Are you upset the Hawks gave the extension to DeAndre Hunter about a year ago? Looking back on it, it looks really idiotic.
Hindsight always 2020. Coming off that, like I said, that Game 5 game, you knew he was going to be looking for a big contract after that. And given the potential he showed in him being the number 4 pick. And the Hawks traded up in the draft to get him, so they couldn't just not re-sign him or not get nothing for him. So they re-signed him, and they overpaid, but it's not so bad of a contract that they just can't trade him because, like I said, he still has the potential, and he's not a bad player by any means, but like I say. He's a
not
very
the number 4 overall pick
player.
though, at all.
Yeah, and there may be rebuilding teams out there that will be willing to, take him and help develop him. So it's like I said, it's a tradable contract, and as you mentioned on one of the previous episodes, like how we have so many players where we use the term tradable contracts because they're at a point where we have to consider trading them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We talk about how the Hawks have had 2 different teams the last 2 years. It just depends on what showed up that night because of how inconsistent the entirety of the team was. One night, John Collins would go off. DeAndre Hunter would give you nothing. One night, Capella would go off, and Yeka couldn't stay out of foul trouble. One night, Trey would be incredible from the 3-point line, get a couple steals, look a lot better defensively than what most people say. DeJounte would come in, shoot 2 from 9. That's the story of this team. Consistency. Not only game to game, but opponent to opponent. They couldn't beat the Hornets. They split with the Rockets and the Spurs last year. 2 of the worst teams in the league. They went 2-2 against those boys. 1-3 against the Hornets. You win those games, they're not in the play-in. They're not. That's the issue. And I get that we have Quinn Snyder now, and it's not Nate McMillan, but it's still the same team, and I still need to see more change. Yeah.
2 blown leads to the Spurs and the Rockets. It's the mediocrity and the inconsistency from this team that bothers me.
And we lost to the Hornets twice at home with 20-point leads without LaMelo Ball. How does that happen? For a team with playoff aspirations, I don't get it. But I'm not the one who's suiting up out there. I love the Hawks just like the rest of them, but I love to keep it real. And right now they are just – I want to enjoy – I love watching the Braves night in, night out. I want to have that same joy with I want to have the same joy that I do with the Braves that I do during the winters with the Hawks because they run parallel to one another. The Braves are April to October. The Hawks are October to April. And it'd be, a very likelihood that they could both have good seasons and, mix a little bit of football in there. We're never going to be upset as sports fans, but that's up to the Hawks. The Braves are doing their part. But, Connor, any final thoughts on the Hawks before we move on to Flowery Branch and the Dirty Birds?
No more thoughts. I agree with you guys on your takes, and I hope Hawks can kind of figure it out. Starts with the front office, and I hope they can make their way and hopefully find some way to go deeper and make a deeper playoff run and maybe make some new acquisitions along the way.
Now I'm going to turn over the floor here to these guys who know a lot more about these teams than I do. We're going to start with Atlanta United, keeping Connor on task here. They're in a break right now. They don't play again until August 20th, and they're towards the middle of the table in the MLS. It seems like a lot of people want this manager gone. They want this general manager gone. It's, ever since Tata and I forget the guy's name who left to go back to the Premier League, Atlanta United is, the ship has sunk
Frank DeBoer,
regarding how good they were the first, 3 years. Well, not Frank DeBoer. What's the name of that general manager that we had that went over to Europe?
Darren Eales.
Yeah, ever since Darren Eales and Tata Martino left, Atlanta United went from elite top of the map to maybe middle of the pack, similar spots to the Hawks. And, of course, they played their most recent game in a shootout against a team from Mexico, a club from Mexico. And Brad Guzan was already pretty old when we got him, right? He was already an older dude. I got to watch the shootout because the Braves were kicking butt that night. And let's just say the dude made no saves. The only missed shot was the one off the post. Atlanta United lost that game, and it gives them a 3-week period. What the hell went wrong with this franchise? They were so promised.
Yeah, I just think a lot has to do with some of the decision making. With Carlos Bocanegra kind of taking over the assignments for the front office of Darren Eales. He built a world class team that dominated MLS. In the year 2018, their second year, they won it all. And since then, 2019, they had a pretty good year.
They were good in 17 and 19 too.
Yeah, it seems like since 19, they've been unable. They've had talent on the team, and they've been able to avoid injury for the most part. There've been some here and there, but I just think a lot of it has to come to the top. I'm not so sure that Gonzalo Pineda is the long-term solution. I think he's certainly a great head coach, but I'm not sure that with some of the new acquisitions that were made recently that he's going to be the best fit. And it seems like a lot of the fan base isn't too happy with him either, as they're kind of hovering around 7th in the Eastern Conference right now as they resume MLS play on August 20th. So as far as the rest of the season goes, I'm not so sure that I expect him to make the postseason, but I think next year they'll start to make some offseason improvements, including a new head coach, I would presume, since Gonzalo Pineda is, I think, on his last leg, and I think Arthur Blank wants to move on from him ultimately.
Well, the thing is, we've gone through 3 managers now since Tata left. They let go of Frank DeBoer. Maybe it looks like a little too early. And they had Pineda. And what was the guy they had in between Pineda and DeBoer that they also let go of?
I can't even remember his name, to be honest. He was like a short term. I think his last name was Glass. But he was just some interim manager or coach that was never going to be a long term deal. I think he was on like an assistant coach. I think he was like the midfielder coach. So yeah, I think he's just. I don't think. Again, I don't think Pineda is going to be the long term deal. And if they want to kind of destruct the team a little bit and kind of rebuild as they've been doing a little bit already, I think a new coach is going to be the best interest. Pineda, Arthur Blank was very interested in getting him because he had quite a big resume being with the Seattle Sounders for many years, leading up to his time in Atlanta. And I just seen a lot of the MLS managers across the league had good opinions about him, but it just seems like he's kind of fizzled out a little bit.
Would you consider Atlanta United off track, being that they started that rebuild a couple years ago? I know a soccer rebuild isn't really the same rebuild as in any other sport because all your leagues are intertwined and the MLS is always going to be lower on the totem pole, but they sold high on so many guys a couple years ago, and it just seems like any sense of talent they bring back, they just reship them off. I mean, you had Garza, you had Lorenowitz, you had Parkhurst, you had Gressel, you had Kratz, you had McCann, you had Almiron, you had, Barco, Joseph. I mean, Guzan, Alakan, everybody. That, as you said, that team was a super team. That first year, they were pretty good. They snuck into the playoffs, got eliminated in a shootout to Columbus Crew. Heartbroken, but they came back and won the freaking cup in year 2. And if it wasn't for Guzan being a little sleepy in that Toronto game in the Eastern Conference Finals, they probably would have won on and beat Seattle and been back-to-back champs. But going into COVID, they had to bleed a little bit of money. It seems like they shipped some guys off highly and kept the revenue throughout the COVID bubble, but they've just not been the same team. And I loved Atlanta United for a couple of years. I'm not gonna lie, but until I saw them come back and lay 3 stinkers in that Disney bubble to restart that season, I lost a lot of passion for them. And it's really unfortunate because they just have not been the same team that they were, from a couple of years ago. Like they weren't. You said a minute ago, Connor, you don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year? Weren't they as high as like second or third in the table for the first month or two of play this year?
Yeah, they were. They were expected at the beginning of the season. They were projected to be third in the Eastern Conference by the end of the year, but you had new teams like in the East, like Charlotte, who's outperformed this year. You have Cincinnati, who started a few years ago, who has Brandon Vasquez on their roster, a former Atlanta United striker. So I mean, you have a lot of talent in the East, and with the situation Atlanta United's in right now, where they're kind of middle of the line, mediocre, I guess mid would be a good word to kind of describe them. They're just going to fall behind and keep falling behind until make some real decision making and you kind of make some coaching decisions on who you can bring in and who's going to be headed out.
So you're talking about coaching and front office changes. Let's talk about the roster for a quick second. Who needs to go for the player wise? I know a lot of fans were upset about the Andrew Gutman trade. He seemed like a good player from the few times I watched him. People love Thiago Almada. Thiago Almada, he won the World Cup with Messi just a short 7 months ago. But I think a lot of us know that he's eventually going to be shipped on, just like Barco and Joseph and every other star was. Guzan's an absolute dinosaur at this point. Like, what are some of the roster moves that players that just need to go and maybe be replaced with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm as disappointed as everyone else with the Gutman trade. I think a lot of it had to do with the contract situation that he had. I'm not so sure that it was the right move to send him to Colorado, but again, obviously you bring up someone like Guzan, who's been around for many years. He's been on the U.S. men's national team. He's been with Atlanta United since year one. He came in the middle of July, I believe. So I mean, I get a lot of those players that you had on that 2018 MLS Cup championship team are gone now, and then you have younger players like Thiago Almada, who obviously they're young talents, but they don't really have a supporting cast around them, and so I don't know that it's really time to get rid of more players. Obviously, it may be imminent, considering the amount that they pay them. But I just feel like a lot of the existing players are good for the club. Some of the bench players that don't play as much maybe should be shipped off. But there is plenty of talent. Obviously, with Inter Miami just getting Messi in the past few weeks, they're going to be a threat all of a sudden.
And Tata and Joseph.
Right. They're growing something big down there with David Beckham as their part owner. I think Miami is going to be a threat. Obviously, last in the East right now, but they're working their way up, and I mean, really, if they just had Messi, they'd be a one-man show. But I think it's time for Atlanta United to go over the pond, if you will, and get some players from Europe to bring in. While there's a lot of talent in MLS right now, and they can certainly make some transfers through the league, I think they need to start looking outside the box. Maybe even look in the English Premier League. Try to since Atlanta United still has a lot of revenue to give out. I think that it's time to start looking out there and try to get back to where they were in 2018 and so on.
A lot of good stuff there. I mean, I'm hoping, the best for them. It seems like a lot of stuff just hasn't worked for Atlanta United the last couple of years. The fan support's still great. They're still selling out. They're still putting 70,000 people in the seats for MLS games, which is incredible in its own right. But one other thing I'll bring up is, as we wait for Micah to rejoin, is it seemed like they had an issue this year that hadn't been an issue for them in the past. They were having the same issue the Falcons and the Hawks were. The thing soccer is that you can take a tie. You can't do that in basketball or football. The lead would be gone. But how many times did this year did Guzan, or the back line blow a lead in the 87th, 88th minute, leading in a draw instead of would be 3 points? And maybe that's the reason they're 7th in the standings right now.
Oh yeah, it's a big contributor to that. And Guzan, obviously he's an American soccer legend. He doesn't quite have. He's not as athletic as he once was. Not not as good as a goalkeeper. He's wise in the sense that he can be a mentor to younger goalkeepers, but he just doesn't have it as much anymore. But yeah, it's been really disappointing, and it's been making the fan base really upset. It seems like they get the lead. They seem like they're going to be running away with the win with 3 points, and then just in the last few minutes they kind of give up the lead. Something goes wrong with the defense, or tired, or whatever element it is to it, and they kind of flail and give up the lead and settle for a draw instead of a win.
Now, as a fan, would you rather Atlanta United be stuck with the curse and not the Falcons or the Hawks or the Braves? Like, would you be willing for the straight up being like, hey, well, they're lower on the totem pole here, and you can still take a draw and be successful in soccer
Yeah,
like other sports. Like, if the Atlanta sports curse had to bite a new team, would you be fine with it being United and not the other three we've talked about so far?
yeah, I'm very much willing, especially because Atlanta United has a championship recently. Obviously the Braves have just won it a few years ago, and they're still looking for another one here. But Falcons and Hawks, they still, it seems like whenever they show signs of promise, they kind of end up disappointing everyone. But I'm definitely willing for the curse to kind of go to Atlanta United right now for a while, as they kind of figure things out right now, and then maybe once they can get their situation figured out, maybe they can have success again as well.
Can Alec Can get a clean sheet for us for old time's sake?
Yeah.
For those of you old time listeners know exactly what I'm hinting at with Connor there. We knew this episode would kind of run to about 2 hours. It seems like that's what we're on pace to. But yeah, talk about Falcons training camp. It seemed like for the first 5 days of camp, to start with that, I think we're like 9 or so days in. The first 5 days of camp, the defense won. If my camera is froze, I apologize. I'm here and active. A little bit of technical issues. The first 5 days of camp, the defense won 4 of those days, which is, a sight that I'm willing to hear, being that this Falcons defense has not been special in history or in the last couple of years. So to see that the defense is winning the first couple of days of camp has been incredible. I know Ritter had a rough first day, but came back and bounced back and had an incredible week. Heineke's also looked good for what it's been worth. But I start with you, Connor. What have been some of the things you've seen on Falcons Twitter that's got you finally excited for the Falcons this year, unlike years previous?
Yeah, I'm just glad that Terry's in the front office. It seems like he's been making some big moves in the offseason, and I'm just happy that Ritter's starting to feel more comfortable here. It seemed like last year he kind of felt like that he had to perform a certain way, and I think a lot of that was stressful for him being a young rookie. And I think being a second year player this year, I think he'll have a lot more experience under his belt. He'll know what to expect, and he'll have a lot more success in the division race as well.
So we'll talk about the guy everybody wants to talk about. Bijan has been incredible in one-on-one this week. He burnt Caden Ellis. He burnt Troy Anderson. He burnt Tay Davis. Pretty much any Falcons linebacker, which I will say the linebacker core might be the weakest on the team going into the season. That's why Micah and I keep hammering the point home. Bring back Rashaan Evans. Please bring back Rashaan Evans. Make him home. Bring him home. How incredible has it been to see Bijan just going? I know they just put on pads a couple of days ago, but to see the stuff that he's been doing, the first week of camp.
Yeah, just seeing the clips that they put out of Bijan is just like you can already see the type of player he's going to be. He's going to be really good for this team, man. He said in many of the in some of his interviews that some of the fans said they haven't seen this type of hype since Michael Vick days, and he's wearing his numbers. But yeah, he's a special talent, and I'm ready to see what he does when the season starts.
and I'm going to training camp for the first time ever on Saturday, and I'll be very excited. And a lot of people have said like this is the crowd is that Flowery Branch is like Hill and Connor. You would know as you've been to training camp a couple times over the year. This is the most crowded it's been in forever. Out there, people are finally excited about this team, and they should be. They finally got out of the cap hell that Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitrov put us in. They're finally out of the roots of Dirk Cutter and all the bad contracts that were handed out to Matt Ryan, Deion Jones, Jake Matthews, who has been restructured. Julio Jones, of course, and we talked about this on a previous episode. We finally have some excitement for the Falcons. I guess we'll cover a little bit of recent news as we wait for Micah to return. They ended up having to cut ways with, unfortunately, with Caleb Huntley. He tore his Achilles in November. The PUP list, and give him a chance to get healthy by midseason, but they're cutting bait with him. They like what they've seen out of Carlos Washington, who is a very similar player to Caleb Huntley in that fourth running back position. Because Bijan and Algier are going to get a bunch of carries. Patterson's not going to stop getting his running back carries. Carlos Washington has been really good in camp. He's broken away for a couple touchdowns in practice, and I think that was enough for the Falcons to say, you know what, we'll cut weight with Huntley, and we'll give him his injury pay for the season, and we wish him the best elsewhere. But I really love the depth of this running back unit. It's probably, if not the best in the NFL, definitely top three position-wise in the league. And Ritter has really settled in over the last week. He's, I think, only thrown one interception the last week. I think he's got 3 or 4 so far along camp. Heineke has 2. But, of course, Ritter's been running with the ones. He's been playing a lot more talent, been getting a little bit more snaps. But the most recent news today, is they decided to finally cut weight and cut Felipe Franks, but they also put Ethan Greenridge, the swing tackle we saw him from New Orleans, on the injured list, on the injured reserve, which means he's going to miss at least 4 weeks. That could end up being a bigger problem than most people were thinking. The Falcons had a great O-line for the first time in forever last year. They really did. But want to know what they didn't do this offseason? And Micah would know this. They didn't bring back any of that depth. They let Elijah Wilkinson go. They let Chuma Edoga go. They brought back Germain Ifedi just to cut him 2 weeks later. He didn't even make it to OTAs. So Ethan Greenridge being hurt is a little bit of an eye-opener for me, because all of a sudden that O-line depth, especially with Tennessee dealing with a little bit of issues as well, your swing tackle was Jalen Mayfield. Do you really want that dude seeing the field? I don't. I don't potentially want to see that dude on the field again, unless it's a preseason game where we're up by 30 in the fourth quarter and don't blow it. All of a sudden, the Falcons need to go out and get another swing tackle. They're still down a linebacker. They're still down a wide receiver. They're still down a depth tackle. And Ethan Greenridge, which I do like the signing, in another poach in New Orleans, good depth. Him being hurt doesn't give you depth, though. And, what was your breakdown on all the news happening today, Micah? Again, for the ones that haven't heard, it's the Falcons cutting Felipe Franks. The experiment's finally over. He's followed me since college. Glad to see he's finally gone. Chris Blair and I know the dude, but I can't pronounce his name. Ikenna, Enechukwu. They just cut bait with a couple players. They didn't have a chance to make the practice squad, and they put Ethan Greenridge on the injured list. Mike, I'll start with you. How big could this injury concern be to our tackle unit?
To start with that, like you said, the Falcons failed to bring back a lot of depth from last year when we had one of the best run blocking lines in the league. Something I really didn't understand, but they also drafted Matthew Bergeron. And I'm excited to see what he can do, and how much he'll see the field. And to talk on the Felipe Franks getting waived, it's just the beginning of the team starting the cuts, getting down to the amount that they're supposed to have. Slipped my mind how many. It's just the first of many cuts that will be coming. But I also did see something about Felipe being injured and Falcons could possibly bring him back after his injury. But I hope he's done. His Falcons senior is over. I hope so.
We have 4 tight ends on this roster better than Felipe Franks. We got Kyle Pitts, Johnny Smith. We brought back our favorite, McCole Pruitt. And Parker Hesse. I'm putting him over Felipe Franks is at this point in time. They like Rakovic, that running back we took from the European. I forget exactly what club he came with. He came in one of those like European football, like American football docs that they have over. I want to say they got him from Germany, and they really like him. He's been getting a lot of carries. He's been blocking a lot. He's been playing. They're gonna kind of move him in as like the Keith Smith replacement. That's gonna be what Rakovic is. He might be on the practice squad for some of this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he started at least a couple of games for the Falcons at the fullback position this year. They got one more year with Keith Smith. But I'll go to Connor here to talk about the tight end room. One thing that we still want to hit on is that re-signing you think helped Desmond Ridder, being the great chemistry they had in the red zone in the 4 games he started last year.
Oh yeah, I think it was a great great to re-sign him because I think he and Ridder had great chemistry last year. Obviously, Ridder is going to be comfortable with him again, since in the games that Ridder did start, he was out there as well, so they're going to know each other. Ridder's going to know the kind of way that he runs his routes. He's going to know where he's at on the field. And his strengths and weaknesses as well, and work through those as the season progresses. So I just think long term, it's going to be a great success for those two on the roster.
And being they were able to successfully bring back McCole Pruitt this late, what do you think? How much do you like their chances of them still bringing back Rashaan Evans? Because as Micah and I said, they're still down one linebacker, and it makes sense. He loves Arthur Smith. Go get him.
Yeah, I think Terry Fontenot is definitely interested in going after that. I think he knows what it means to the team, and I think I'm pretty confident that he can go out and make a late grab for him.
And then, Micah, same question for you. What's your update on Rashaan Evans as of August 3rd, 2023?
I'm trying to get my dog to be quiet, but to answer real quick, I think we have I don't understand why he's isn't on the team already. He was top 5 in tackles last year, and I'm surprised he's on no team right now because he's still a good player, and he has stuff to give to teams, and that he's the type of player that this team needs. And what we've seen from training camp, he's definitely the type of player that we need, and his veteran leadership is something that will help this team a lot too. That we seen last year, and he could carry it over to this year with us trying to build this new culture.
And see, I wonder, as you said, you're surprised that he's still not on a team this late. I wonder if that means he's waiting for the offer for the Falcons, because he probably could have taken other offers for more money elsewhere. I know the Steelers were talking with him. I know the Eagles were talking with him. Those are the good teams up in Pennsylvania. I saw some rumors that maybe a team like Buffalo was looking into him. Like, there were some teams that wanted Rashaan Evans' services. So a former first-round linebacker, led the league in tackles last year. Now, I do think a lot of that is the Falcons would let running lanes right through that first lane, and he would have to be the man to make the tackle. I do think there's a little bit to that because Aluakon played the same way. But it just makes too much sense for the Falcons not to bring back Rashaan Evans. I still think there's time for it. And as you said, you and I have his Instagram notifications on right now. We're checking his stories. We're seeing if there's anything going on. He's in the gym. He's working every day. And, we talked about how the linebacker unit has not been the greatest in camp so far. Michael Walker's looked good, and I think Ryan Nielsen really likes him. We expect an improvement from Troy Anderson. We don't know how much the improvement will be. We can expect it, though. Caden Ellis and D'Angelo Malone, Tay Davis, they're all doing their part. But it seems like this unit is missing one guy, and I don't know if Rashaan Evans will be that full-time starter he was last year, but it seems like this unit still needs him. He loves Arthur Smith. He loves that community he was in last year. It just makes too much sense for the Falcons not to get him, because it honestly won't be that expensive. I wouldn't be mad if they gave him like a 2-year, $4 million deal at this point in time. What about you, Micah?
Yeah, I hope that a deal gets done with him. That's too many reasons for us to get him. More reasons for us to get him than to not get him back on this roster.
And I think a little bit goes into he was more of a Dean Pease guy over Nielsen because you saw he kind of played over Michael Walker and Troy Anderson last year, but it makes too much sense not to. There's still time. He's still got a month before the season. Maybe another linebacker goes down. Maybe we see this first preseason game. We'll definitely be talking about that in our next episode. Maybe we'll see how bad the linebacker core looks, and then we'll be like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. He's still out there. Let's go get him. And maybe by that point, they made a couple more cuts, which allows a little bit of money to go get him. But staying with the defensive topics here, let's give a lot of praise to what Ryan Nielsen has said so far. He's building that culture. The defense, it seems like they're out there flying around with the offense, and especially the secondary, man. Jalen Hawkins he's looking like a baller out there. If there was a year for a Jalen Hawkins breakout, it looks like this is the year. He came in with 3 picks, 3 days to start training camp. Richie Grant has been out there doing his thing, battling with Drake London. Clark Phillips has held his end and a lot of one-on-ones as well. He looks really good for the undersized guys. Same thing with D. Alford. Like the secondary, I think you also got to give a little bit of praise to Coach Gray. Has looked really freaking good, and that is a testament to what Ryan Nielsen has done so far. I'll ask Connor first, how much improve you think Ryan Nielsen and Coach Gray are going to make the secondary day one?
Yeah, I think it's to be a lot more improvement, and they definitely need it. It seems like over the past few years, the Dean Pease situation hasn't been as good as it was intended to work. And I think just having a younger guy come in, kind of having a more kind of a hands-on approach with the players, I think he's definitely going to have. He's gonna make the defense. He's gonna hype them up. Not only that's important, but he's gonna stick to the strategy, the game plan. I think overall, I think Ryan Nielsen is a good fit for the secondary, and for the guys we have on the team right now, he can help them improve. He can get on them when he needs to get on them, and I think overall, he'll be a guy that's going to be with the team for years.
And it seems like the Falcons hired him because I've heard a lot of Saints fans say this with praise is you want to be a year early on this guy rather than a year late, which seems like at the route he's going at, it looks like he might be a future head coach in this league. And that's something the Falcons haven't had at the defensive position in a long time. And to speak on what you said about Dean Pease, I know it didn't really go as great the last 2 years, but I think a lot of us knew it was going to be more of like a bridge gap. He was willing to come in, help Terry, help Arthur for a couple years before he decided to re-retire. And, with the talent he was working with last year, I'm surprised we won 7 games. Micah and I pound our fists about this all the time. The Falcons were a 2-win roster the last 2 years. They found a way to win 7 games. They spent like $250 million in contracts this offseason, but we're picking in the top 5 totally. That's exactly how that's going to work. Stupid national media that is. But really excited to see that the defense is winning practice for once. I'd rather see the defense win practice over offense. I think time will come for that. This offense still has talent. Arthur Smith was able to win 7 games with Marcus Mariota at quarterback and Caleb Huntley getting a bunch of carries. So Parker Hesse getting a lot of tight end targets. So I think he is probably a year or 2 away at this pace from being on the pedestal that Kyle Shanahan is. And we know how great of an offensive mind that guy is as well. So, we'll talk about Arthur Smith real quick. You brought it up, Micah, how much more nonchalant he's been in his interviews, which is a good thing. He seemed like he's been a little bit more loose this training camp. He's been having fun with reporters, having fun with the fans out there. You saw him give a fine out to Orlando Ledbetter for missing the first couple of days of training camp. Just fun little stories of that sort. And it seems like he's ready to go this season. Compared to the last where he knew it was going to be a bit of a long haul. How much do you trust him with how much fun he's been having?
I mean, like you watch the press conferences, you just see he's smiling more, he's happy, he's actually wanting to talk about things. He even said himself he's actually having fun, and he feels like he has a real football team this year, and that's very encouraging to hear for Falcons fans, knowing that the last 2 years have been what it's been. The last couple of years, even before him, has been what it's been. But now that you can see Arthur Smith is having fun. He also said this is the most fun he's had coaching, the happiest he's been coaching, and that's good for us fans to hear. And to go back on the Ryan Nielsen thing real quick, Jesse Bates said he could overhear him in the defensive line room yelling at them, throwing chairs, and me personally, that's the type of coach that I love to have on my team. He has the energy. He's shown he cares. He's building a culture, and that's something nice. That's something that's what we've been missing, and I like that.
And then Connor, for you, you've told me off camera a couple of times when we've talked in person, but I want the audience to hear this too. You've given Arthur Smith his praises a bunch in these first 2 years, talking about how great of a coach he is and how much you like how he's flipping the chemistry here the Falcons haven't had in a long time. So why don't you let the audience know some of the things that we've talked about off camera before?
Yeah, I think he's just a great fit for the organization, and I think he's about as good of a coach as we could have gotten upon the departure of Dan Quinn, and having an offensive background in Tennessee, working with quarterbacks like Tannehill. He has a lot of experience, and he knows what he's doing. Unknown disrespect to Dan Quinn, but it seems like Arthur Smith, he seems like he knows the game plan better. He knows the opponents better, and he has a better approach to the games. And it seems like he's in better suit to make in-game adjustments and to take the team further.
Now, the one thing I say is, if he finds a way to stop getting swept by the Saints, I love Arthur Smith a whole lot more. But hopefully that's a conversation we don't have to have this year. One more topic, regarding the defense. Because, I think the Saints are going to be right there with us throughout most of the season. I think the Panthers are more of a year away. They're kind of what we were last year, but we'll see how right I am. To talk about the defensive line room and how, stuff is going on, there's been a little bit of updates regarding the roster. Going into camp, we expected Calais Campbell and Eddie Goldman to be parts of this team. Now, Calais is fine. Calais is in year 16. He's still been at the facility every day. They just gave him about 10 extra days to just kind of sit there in his veteran self and just – I think he practiced day one, and they said, okay, you look good. We'll give you a couple weeks and just come by every day, which he has. But the Eddie Goldman thing is what hurts the most. The dude is 28, 29 years old, already snake bit us last year regarding his contract. Decided to retire, had some mental health issues, whatever it may, I respect it. I hope he's well. But he decided to call back the Falcons personally. And got his contract back, came for the first day and change of camp, and was absolutely balling out there. Again, no pads, first day. Everything is taken with a little grain of salt. But he looked like he could be a core part of this newly depth-filled defensive line unit, something the Falcons haven't had in a decade, right? Maybe other than 2017. Hasn't been able to get to the quarterback. Now we had the depth and not just practice squads out there playing with Grady Jarrett. Eddie Goldman could have been a huge part of this team with Onyemata and with Calais Campbell and Grady Jarrett in that defensive tackle room. With him all of a sudden deciding that he's not ready after 2 days. Now the Falcons put him on a list where if he decides to come back, he can only come back to the Falcons, but I highly doubt it. Like, how much hype were you putting into Eddie Goldman coming into camp, Micah, and how disappointed are you that it didn't work out along with Calais maybe having a little bit of issues?
I mean, I was excited to see that Grady was getting the help that he hasn't had. And I want to say his whole career, but he did have a nice room his early years, but the help he hasn't had in a while, put it that way. And seeing Eddie go from, like you said, balling out to ending up changing his mind again with him not wanting to play, it's a big loss and it's disappointing. And to touch on Calais Campbell, with him, we know the type of player he is, and with him being towards the end of his career, I think it's best for him to not have to be out there this early before the season, because he's had problems with injuries the past couple of seasons, so keeping him out of the way from being risking an injury is something I agree with, but they'll have to get him out there soon so he could work his way back up though he has been working out all off season as he does every off season of his career.
Now, I will say this, right? Timmy Horn has been in that defensive unit. He was really good down the stretch for what he was worth, an undrafted player, and he's looked really good in camp since Eddie Goldman has decided that he's not part of the team. But losing two pieces of depth already, because we know that Calais is older. He's going to play when he can, but he's probably going to miss a couple games because of injury. He's going to be more of there to develop this younger tackles and to kind of reset this culture the Falcons haven't had for pretty much the history of their franchise. Losing Eddie Goldman and Calais Campbell, asterisk with Calais Campbell, of course, means you're already relying on the development of these young guys. And it's something just like the Hawks haven't had. They haven't had their players take the next step. Neither have the Falcons with their defensive line unit. You're expecting Taquan Graham to take the next step. You're expecting Ebiketie to take the next step. You're expecting D'Angelo Malone to take the next step. You're hoping Zach Harrison is a bigger role than he's supposed to be year one. That's not something this is the reason we brought in guys like Goldman. So we have a little bit more depth. We don't have a lot of asterisks. We can get to the quarterback. So just one player messes up with the entire scheme, and I don't know, man. Like, do you 0 to 100? What do you think the chances are that Eddie Goldman suits up at all for the Falcons as of right now this year, Micah?
It's definitely below 50. I say it's in the 20 range. 20, probably lower than that. It's very disappointing, but you know, mental health comes first. But if he's able to play, I hope he'll be able to come back and have an impact on this team, the impact that we know he can have.
And then secondly, you said about 25% chance he plays for the Falcons this year. Okay, I'll ask you this. Well, out of the same format, what are the chances the Falcons re-sign Rashaan Evans?
I say that's in the 50 range. Because it's like, does Nielsen want him? And then you got, like I said, he's top 5 in tackles last year. He has the talent and everything. Just depends on if
still young
Nielsen wants him. Yep.
And then Connor, I'll ask you the same thing. What do you think the odds are that Goldman suits up for us, and what are the odds that they re-sign Rashaan Evans?
Yeah, I'm gonna play it safe. Around 50% that Goldman plays, just because what he with some of his injury problems he's been having, and with Rashaan Evans, I'm not so sure that he's gonna re-sign. I think they're going to be probably gearing towards another player in free agency. So next season. So we'll just see how it plays out. But I expect good things from the team this year. I'm a little uncertain on what the record is going to be, but I expect them to hopefully win the division, see what they can do in the postseason if they get there.
And then I guess quickly a little topic about the wide receiver room, because we know that there's maybe a possibility they could add there. I will give credit where credit's due. Matt Collins has looked like an absolute beast out there so far. The first week in change, he's out there. Doing his thing. He's catching passes in the red zone, bringing in his whole mentality of no silverware, no shoes, none of that, which is cool. It's great to have a little bit more personality on this team. But he's been looking really good, which is a really nice sight to see. Drake London coming in a year two, of course, you expect him to take the next step. But yeah, other than that, Scott, what Scotty Miller's going to bring, but it seems like I keep hammering this point home. The three things the Falcons still need to add is they need one more linebacker, they need one more depth tackle, and they need one more wide receiver. Whether that's Corey Davis, whether we don't know who it'll be at this point. They were talking to Jarvis Landry at one point. It seems like things have kind of gone. The talks fell through regarding his contract to play here, but. Connor, do you think the Falcons have enough wide receivers going into the season? Because, there's still a chance that they end up lining up, Pitts and Cordero at wide receiver a good bit too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on who can stay healthy, who can be the most versatile. I know there's some wide receivers out there, but I'm not so sure if they're in good position to get them. So yeah, I just think it all depends on on who can step up and kind of take command here, and I think they'll determine the success of this team this year.
And then, Micah, what about you?
I mean, Arthur Smith formula since he's been here has been big, strong, and fast, and we've seen that with them drafting Drake London, picking up Scotty Miller with the speed, Mac Hollins with his size, and like you said, we got Cordero Patterson that cut line up as a receiver. We got Kyle Pitts who could line up in the slot. And we've got multiple options, and this is a run first team. So if we don't add a receiver, it won't be too big of a deal because, like I said, we are a run first team, and Arthur Smith is an offensive genius. And we have the weapons with the tight end and running back positions, and with Bijan, Algier, Patterson, Jonu, Kyle, Drake, we've got a lot of weapons on this team, and so if we don't add another receiver, it won't be too big of a deal.
Like we've covered pretty much everything. The last team that we haven't actually talked about in our 3 episodes of the podcast, Mike has been dying to. Oh, I guess technically we haven't talked about the Gladiators. That'll be for the next time you're on, Connor. We'll talk about the hiring of Derek Nesbitt and everything regarding them. You know, their new rivalry with the Savannah. That's like we've talked about the Stripers because they're part of the Braves. We've talked about the Falcons, the Hawks. We've talked Tech and UGA, football and basketball, even a little bit of baseball. The only thing we haven't covered yet, and I know, Michael, you're super excited for this, being the huge basketball avid fan you are. The Dream are having one of the better years they've had in a long time. They had 3 All-Stars this year. They look like a team that finally might. I mean, a couple years ago, I had a lot of diehard Hawks fans that were the same way with the Dream telling me that they had a squad, that they were going to be a title contender. They were going to make the playoffs. And then I look at the end of the year, their standings, they're like third last in the Eastern Conference. I'm not someone who watches the Dream. I maybe watch 2-3 games a year. I'm not going to sugarcoat to you, but Micah is someone who watches pretty much every game. Give our fans that haven't heard about the Dream yet everything they need to hear.
Well, I'll keep it short since we're past the 2 hour mark. But right, if y'all been seeing me looking up, I'm watching the game right now. Just watch Diana Taurasi make history. She just passed the 10,000 point mark. But as of right now, the Dream are 14-12 with 14 games to go. 14-12 has them at the 3rd seed in the East, 5th seed out of the entire WNBA. The Dream's been looking pretty good. They've been rebuilding the past couple of years, but this has been a bounce back year with them trading for Alicia Gray before the season started, and she's been a big boost for this team. We had 3 All-Stars this year with Alicia Gray, Ryan Howard, and Cheyenne Parker, and they came out of the All-Star break hot. That July was a very good month for them. They was on a 7 game win streak. They finished it 8-3, and the team's chemistry lately has been very good with Alicia Gray, Ryan Howard, Nas Hillman, and I think that's played a huge part in this team being this team being as good as it's been lately. And they've been making noise in the East, and it's just a start for this team because they're still at the beginning of this rebuild. And Tanisha Wright was also Coach of the Month last month, and the Dream have a lot to look forward to in the future. This team has a bright future coming out of the rebuild.
So you said that the WNBA plays 40 games?
Mm-hmm.
Why not 41? Why not cut it in half with the NBA being they play 82?
Not a not a question for me.
Do you as of right now think the Dream will make the playoffs?
Absolutely. Like I said, they're currently fifth in the WNBA, and they would be they're like third in the East, and they have a pretty good lead on the teams under them right now. So it'd take a lot to go wrong in these last 14 games for the Dream to miss the playoffs.
Well, good to hear. I know for a couple of years they were they were like the only team in town competing for titles.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them get one within the next 5 years.
If you made it this far, clearly you enjoy something. So we just want to say, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe to Around the A, wherever you find your podcast. Whether it's a clip out of ours, my YouTube channel, something to Connor, something to Dylan, something to Micah's. We really appreciate you guys. Again, like we talked Braves, we talked Hawks, we talked Falcons, we talked United, we talked UJ and Georgia Tech football. I didn't talk anything else with them today. We'll get to that in a future episode. We'll talk about the Gladiators as well. We talked about the Dream. We talked about pretty much anything that was going on in the Atlanta sports landscape, and we're glad you guys joined us and decided to spend your evening or afternoon, whatever time you end up watching with us. But yeah, we'll try to have this up probably around the 5th or 6th of August if you guys are seeing it. And yeah, special thanks to Dylan for joining us. His friends decided to pull him away from us a little early tonight. We didn't get to hear the UGA rants from Dylan. I know Connor really wanted to hear stuff about UGA football. But yeah, you guys can find him on Twitter at Clearfield Media. Same thing on his Instagram, and make sure you guys go give him a follow. As for me, I'm Blake Newsom, joined by Micah Neal and Connor Quinn. And any other final thoughts from you guys tonight?
Follow me on Twitter. Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just say, yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to make my first appearance on the show.
Y'all could follow me on there you go. You can follow me on Twitter at Micah TYN, MICAHTYN, or on Instagram at Micah TYN_.
But yeah, same thing here. I think we all got our Twitters linked. I'm at Newsom Sports ATL. You give me a follow, I'll follow you back. Willing to talk Atlanta sports or anything along those lines with you guys. Same thing with Micah, and same thing with Connor. Make sure you guys give him a follow as well at the Atlanta NHL. We're trying. He's doing his best to try to get hockey back to Atlanta by the time that he and I are in our in our 30s. We wouldn't be mad if we. We'll definitely talk about that.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, next episode we're on, we'll definitely talk about the Gladiators off season and talk about those rumblings about the possibility of us getting the Coyotes. But yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys. We'll talk more Braves. Next episode we'll talk about the Falcons. Preseason start. If the Siakam trade does end up happening, if the Capella trade ends up happening, we'll have it all covered for you guys here. So thank you for joining us for these almost 2.5 hours. And we'll talk to you guys in the next week or so. You guys have a good night.